بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم أما بعد. To continue in the study of تذكرة السامع والمتكلم of Ibn Jamaah rahimahullah, we have reached chapter number 4, in which he discusses the manners of the Sunnah knowledge with his books, which are the means to attaining knowledge, and that which is connected to it, from correcting the book, and being precise in it, and carrying it, and placing it, and buying it, and borrowing it, and copying it. Other than that, he mentions all these benefits in this chapter. And he said, in there we will mention 11 points. Point number 1 that he mentions here, he says, it is befitting for the student of knowledge that he pays concern to attaining books which he is in need of, so long as he is able to buy them. If he is not able to buy them, then he rents them, and if not, he borrows them, because it is a tools or a means of attaining knowledge. There is a means of attaining knowledge. And it should not make it attaining books merely and having many of it a reason or the only intent behind his knowledge, and that he shouldn't make combining them or compiling them his share of understanding, as many of the people, he says, do nowadays. And he says, how great is the statement of the man who said, if you are not someone who memorizes your understanding, then you combining books will not benefit. Now these are important points that the author mentions here, that if you're in need of a book, that you buy it. And if you're not able to buy it, then you rent it or you borrow it. Before, knowledge is attained mostly nowadays, or in the past, knowledge was attained by memorization, and then it became books, where knowledge was attained from sitting with the scholars and reading books. So it's important that a student of knowledge, he attains books in every field, so that he may benefit, and that he may be from those who has a library in which he can return to different affairs and benefit from them. Now, many people nowadays, they try to deprive people from, or they try to make people not want to buy books. And they tell them, you're not in need of it and such, or you may not understand, and whatever it may be. But the scholars advise that a person should compile as many books as he's able to, especially compiling books that he is in need of, as author mentioned, that he is able to understand from the subject of Tawheed, to learn it, the different sciences, fiqh, aqeed, and all these other forms of knowledge. He should attain books in that field. And it should not be from those who say he will not benefit by them. And the scholars mentioned that you should buy books of your level, the level you are at. But if you are gifted a book, then you accept it, even if it is not at your level at times. Why? Because if you do not benefit from it today, you may benefit from it tomorrow. Similarly, a person having many books, if he may not benefit by it today, then tomorrow perhaps some of his offspring may become scholars and they may benefit from that book. And a story that Sheikh Abdul Hamid al-Hajuri mentioned, that even when he wasn't seeking knowledge, he learned how to pray, and he learned Sifatul Salat from the books that his father had, from them Zadul Ma'ad. And he said at that time, the Awam, they used to buy books, and they used to pay concern to that, even if they did not understand what may have been in it. But here you find that at that time, Shaykh Abdul Hamid al-Hajuri wasn't studying, but still he learned how to pray the Salah due to a book that his father had. And how many times a person or an individual becomes guided due to a book that he may find in his father's library. So the benefit may not be attained right now, but later on it may be attained. So it's important to buy books and to have books in different fields. He said if he's not able to attain it if he's able to buy it, then he should not copy it either. And it is not befitting that he constantly copies books, except if he's not able to attain it and buy it. Example, if he does not have the price for it, or he does not have a means to pay someone to copy it for him. And the reason why the author mentioned this, because back in the day there was no photocopiers, not in this. So what they would do is they would take the book and they write it. They write it and copy it in that way. So as is known, writing word for word what the book may contain, it takes a lot of time. So he mentions here, to save time, if you're able to buy the book, then there's no need to copy it. Then he says also, he should not pay extreme concern to the good writing of the book, but rather he should pay concern to it being correct. The correctness of the book, whether that be a correct subject, that the correct benefits are mentioned in it, or that the writing of the book is correct. Example, the hadith are written correctly and there is no mistake in them. And he says he should not borrow a book, or he should not borrow a book which he is able to buy or rent. Now, here is important point out to mention that he should pay more concern to it being a book which is correct or corrected. I should not merely pay concern to beautiful writing. For at times, beautiful writing may mislead someone, and for that reason, he may buy a book because of its beautiful writing, but he does not realize that the book in reality has many mistakes in it, and that perhaps the book that is correct and no mistakes in it, maybe the author did not have enough money to print it, a beautiful copy of it, but still it is better than the book with the beautiful writing. An important point to mention is that when buying books, that one buys a book, if he is able to buy the best print of it. It should not be misunderstood from the speech of the author that he should not only pay concern to the writing, but if a person is able to buy a book which has been corrected and been checked, and it's from the scholars, and it's recommended that he buys the best print of that book. For later on, it will benefit him. Example, some prints you find that the hadith are separated from the athar, or that the word of the explainer is separated from the hadith, and it's not mixed up, or that a certain scholar's speech which is quoted is separated, and at the bottom of the page you'll find that the hadith are checked, that the athar are checked, or the checking of it is mentioned. So it makes life much easier when you have a book which is done as such. But if you have a book which is just compiled, and there's no distinction between the different speeches, or the hadith and the athar or the ayat, it can cause someone to become confused at times. Now, it's important also to mention that these books, one should not buy the cheapest form of the print that's found. For perhaps you'll find that those prints that have many mistakes in it. And I'll give you an example. There was a book that I had, the explanation of Bulugh al-Maram of Shaykh al-Uthaymeen. And in that book, it was, when I would read it, it was mashallah, it was a very enjoyable book. So I'd read it often. And so I started to translate some benefits from the book, until one day I translated a benefit about cigarettes, or leaving off cigarettes. And when I translated this benefit, it was mentioned to me by Brother Faisal, I'm going to preserve him, that benefit is not found in the copy which is mu'tamad, in the print which is relied upon. And I said to him, but it's right in front of me in this book. So when we check back the prints and the cassettes, that benefit is not even from the speech of the Shaykh. Showing here that there was additions and subtractions in that explanation that were not from Shaykh al-Uthaymeen. So it's important to buy a print which is good and correct and no mistakes in it. And then the scholars recommend that print. Or an example, you'll find that some of the prints in English nowadays, especially from those that come from Qatar, you'll find that one day I picked up the translation of theirs done for Jami' al-Ulum al-Hikam of Ibn Rajab rahimahullah. And in there, the author rahimahullah, he wrote this book many years ago. But you'll find that there are points mentioned from year 1980 something and 19 this and 19 that, when the author rahimahullah died many years ago. So there's additions and subtractions and many mistakes in those kind of books. So it's important when we buy books, we ask those who are aware of the books which prints are the best, which companies have the best prints, and then we not merely buy a book because it may be $5 cheaper than the other print, because you'll find that the $5 cheaper print might have, as we mentioned, subtractions and additions, and may have things in it that are not correct, that may have many mistakes that are not from the author rahimahullah, which later on can mislead someone if he does not know the benefit of buying good prints and staying away from bad prints. He may find that if he does not go back to the cassette, that this print is good, mashallah, and that's it, he relies upon it. Then he says, point number 2, that it is recommended to loan the books, to lend the books to the one who there's no harm upon him in it, or if there's no harm upon the one lending it. What he means by no harm upon the one borrowing it, meaning so long as he did not give him a book which is above his head, or a book of innovation. For example, you are able to read books of innovation to refute the people. You do not give a beginner that type of book before it may mislead him and make him fall into innovation. So when you're lending a book to someone, you have to understand the individual's level. You do not just lend him any book and not knowing his level. So it's important to understand the levels of the people and not cause harm by lending the book. Lending the book is recommended if you are able to. And there's no harm upon the individual you're lending it to. Allah says, وَتَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْبِرِّ وَالتَّقْوَى وَلَا تَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْإِثْمِ وَالْعُدْوَانِ. Come together and enjoy upon each other, al-birr wa taqwa, and not al-ithm wal-udwan. So when you're lending a book for the sake of Allah, there's no harm upon you, no harm upon him, then that is recommended. But you give an individual a book which you know is going to cause him harm, then in reality you are cheating your own brother. And he said a group of people, they dislike that one lends books. And he says what is correct is the first one, that it is more befitting to lend because it is knowledge. And he says since lending something generally has virtue and rewards in it. A man said to Abu al-Atahiya that he said, lend me your book. So Abu al-Atahiya, he said, I dislike that. So he said to him, do you not know that the honor is reached with things that are disliked? So he lent him the book. This narration is not authentic. And he says, Al-Shafi wrote to Muhammad ibn al-Hassan, O you do not give a book as a loan to who you except for those who you see similar to you. He says, knowledge prevents a person to prevent it from its people. Meaning, you not give me this book, knowledge prevents that you do not give me this book. Meaning, you should lend me this book, for it is knowledge, and you should not prevent the people from knowledge. And he says that it's befitting for the one borrowing the book that he thanks the one that is lending the book to him, and that he asks him to be rewarded with good. And he should not keep it with him without any need. You should not keep it with him without any need, or except for the amount of time he needs. But rather, when he finishes with it, he returns it back to him. And if this owner seeks it back from him, he should not withhold it. Or if he is not in need of it, he should return it. And he says that it is not permissible for him that he corrects anything in that book except for the permission of the owner of the book. Or he should not add notes. I should not write anything on it. In the books, generally you find that in the beginning of the book and end of the book there's white papers. There's white papers or blank papers. Some may think that these papers are there for benefits. Later on, yes, there were more papers entered at the end of it for benefits. But some of the scholars mentioned the reason why this was there before was to protect the book from the middle part, the book from entering any harm upon it. So it's like a cover. So he says in those parts, he should not write anything on it, except if he knows that the owner of the book is pleased with it. And and it should be as the author, the muhaddith, writes upon a part of that which he's listening to, or his books. And he said, وَلَا يُسَوِّدُ, he should not darken it. Meaning, if there is some part of the book where the print has become lighter, he should not darken it. He should not fill it in. And he should not lend it to anyone else. And he should not leave it with anyone except due to a need, whereas permissible legislatively. And he should not copy from it except with the permission of its owner. And these important points, you find sometimes that you lend a book to someone and there's points mentioned, or there's a coffee spilt in it, or there's orange juice spilt, or there's other things that have been done to the book that may upset you. But due to shyness, you do not say anything to the brother. So it's important as when we lend books from people that we treat it as if it's our own book. Especially if it's a book of knowledge, then this book of knowledge should be honored. The way the owner of the book has honored it, then the one borrowing the book should also honor it. One, because the book of knowledge, and secondly, to honor the right of his brother who lent him the book. Then he says that if the book is a waqf, give as endowment for anyone to benefit from it, then there's no problem with copying from it whilst being careful, or no problem correcting that which is in it if he is able and suitable to do so, and he is able to look into it. And it is better that he asks the person who is taking care of it, take care of the book that he is using. And if he copies, then he does so by the permission of the owner or the one taking care of it. And he should not write in the covers. He should not write in the covers, or he should not write on it, and he should not place his ink on it, nor should he pass his pen by it above it. Meaning sometimes some people, when they read a book, they follow the book with their pen or their pencil. So what he's saying, he should not do that, for you might make a mark in the book. You might make a mark in the book. So you should stay away from something like that. And then he says that some of them, they mention a line of poetry. O you who borrowed from me a book, then be pleased for me with it, that which you're pleased for yourself. Meaning, do not do anything to the book, that which you're not pleased with for yourself, that someone else does to your book. And he says that there's many lines of poetry in regards to lending of books. And he says that this summarization does not have space to mention all of it. And the scholars, they mention that those books that mention many lines of poetry regarding this subject is like Jami' al-Bayan al-Ilm wa Fadlih of Ibn Abdul Barr rahimahullah. Now I want to mention a benefit regarding borrowing things. For you find many people, they borrow things